Yes, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the Football Inc., where we have a major breaking news coming from The Guardian, a source of what we should call journalistic integrity, and it always brings the news that you want to hear if you are someone that's had enough, potentially, of Daniel Levy at Tottenham Hotspur. Qatar takeover rumours, they are among us today, and this one involves the crucial element that Daniel Levy has required, demanded for a long time, which is anyone that's coming in, I've got to hang around for a little while and then I'll get on my toes and hop Scott out of the door. We got Jonny on location over in the Middle East. I don't know if he's managed to get across to Qatar exactly, but he's near enough to bring us this exclusive. Jonny, how are you, mate? How are you, buddy?
I'm flying. Listen, our dedication to duty. I've flown out to the Middle East just to find out what's going on. Unfortunately, they've been handed Emirates water, which is probably the reason why we're losing connection here. Traitors, I wish I would just go for tap water in future. I didn't realise I've been drinking Emirates water until just now. Listen, it's a major story, but are we getting fed? Is it just a regurgitated story, Sean? You know, we've heard this so many times before. QSI, QIA, IAE, the guy who runs the bank. We've had so many stories in the past, but the only believable story for me has always been a staggered buyout. You know, initially buying 10% and then an accumulation over the period of, 3 to 5 years before Daniel Levy exits stage right and we have a new leader. Which many people, including myself, would be very happy with. If this group is going to come in and they're going to supply him with the money to actually pay the wages and bring in top signings, which will mean that he just focuses on the income streams coming from outside of football. I'm quite happy with that. If we're spending the money and they're given the tools to which to spend it. My only question is making sure we've got the right people on board spending that money should it ever arrive.
Well, that's what we're going to chew over now. Let's look at the story, mate. It'll be very interesting as we go through this to find out, just to speculate a little bit. A lot of people that have, let's call it, fragile feelings or strong feelings, maybe even towards Daniel Levy is a better way of saying it. Some of that is based on his reluctance to spend his own money into the football club and that of Joe Lewis. And also, of course, the reluctance to pay the wages, even with the club's money. It will be interesting to see whether his risk appetite was or is going to jump up a little bit when it comes to spending other people's money. We'll see. But we'll start with the story. So this is from The Guardian this morning. It says Daniel Levy could be given the chance to stay on at Tottenham by a consortium seeking to buy the club. The Guardian has learned that a group of Qatari investors are willing to give Levy a long-term contract to continue running Spurs as executive chairman. Retaining Levy would be a controversial move given the antipathy towards the chairman from many Tottenham fans, but the investors are keen to retain his expertise. They want control of Spurs, but the proposed takeover could take the form of a phased buyout. Under one model being considered by the investors, Levy would be offered a management contract to run the club, which would remain in place even if ENIC, that owns 87%, give or take, of Tottenham, becomes a minority shareholder. Levy has been the most influential figure at Tottenham since 2001, when ENIC bought about 30% of the club from Alan Sugar before gaining full control 6 years later. Under Levy's leadership, Spurs' financial position has been transformed, with the 63-year-old masterminding the building of their new stadium and establishing Tottenham as one of the richest clubs in Europe, with an annual income of more than £500 million. Tottenham have been open about the fact they are seeking outside investment, with Levy saying last year that the club needed a, quote, significant increase in its equity base, unquote. The financial services group Rothschild has been appointed to advise on investment talks, but there is also outside interest in a takeover. Sources at the club insist they are not currently involved in negotiations on a takeover. Tottenham have been the subject of long-standing interest from the potential investors in America and the Middle East, but no one has met the £3.75 billion valuation. The identity of the Qatari bidders is unclear, but The Guardian has been told they are private individuals rather than the government-backed Qatari Sports Investment Group, or Sheikh Jassim, who tried to buy Manchester United 2 years ago. Interesting. So it's not going to be QSI. I was going to say, Johnny, the limits of the QSI bid would be 25% because of their stake in Paris. And if it's not them, it's not Sheikh Jassim, then maybe this goes back to Amanda Staveley, who we're going to finish up the article talking about. In recent years, Levy has held talks with several Qatari entities without closing a deal. In 2016, Tottenham entered negotiations with QSI about a naming rights deal for the new stadium. And 2 years ago, QSI approached the club about a minority investment. The former Newcastle director, Amanda Staveley, who brokered the Saudi takeover at St. James's Park 4 years ago, held talks with a Middle Eastern group about making an offer last year. In 23, the Financial Times reported that a bid was being prepared by the Iranian-American billionaire Jam Najafi. Tottenham fans chanted Levy out during much of Sunday's FA Cup defeat against Villa. For all the criticism, he has approved a £550 million net spend on players since the new stadium opened 6 years ago. Since 2022, ENIC and Tottenham have been controlled by the billionaire Joe Lewis's family trust, which is managed by two independent professional trustees on behalf of the beneficiaries that do not include Joe Lewis. So that's the end of the story, mate. It doesn't really go into too much of the detail of where the sources are coming from. It doesn't even really go into too much detail around who these people could be, just who they probably aren't.
Yeah.
And so, look, it does say it's an exclusive, though. So, and look, I don't think the Guardian are necessarily known for just making things up. So, well, what's your overall stance here, mate? Is it something that would you be okay with Daniel Levy remaining in charge and them leaning into him for his expertise, even in footballing matters? Or do you think that when they say they want to lean into his expertise, they're talking about other ways to generate income?
Listen, ideally, I'd like Levy to leave sooner rather than later. But, realistically, if we had a 5-year time frame and we knew that was definitive and that was the end of it, then I don't think I'd have a problem with it if he was concentrating on off-field matters. I don't have a problem with that, because we've seen what success he is off-field in, whether it's Kendrick Lamar, Beyonce, and everything else Donna Cullen mentioned the other day. But for me, when it comes to football matters on the pitch, whether it be managers or some of our purchases and the people he's appointed, it's been a complete and utter disaster. So I personally would be happy if, because look, the likelihood is if the Qataris, or whoever they are, the individuals, were to invest, that would mean that we would have money to spend, presumably. I'll say presumably, because we also know that they're looking for money for the hotel. Yeah, listen, we know that they're looking for money for the hotel. They've started it, but they don't have the money right now to fund it. And we also know that Rothschilds, being one of the biggest M&A banks in the world, they've been with them for now 18 months. So there is an issue, whether it's an issue with the valuation, or it could well be an issue with Daniel Levy's dealing with Daniel when it gets down to the nitty gritty, like there has been, with many transfers historically and the dealings.
I think a lot of it also might be down to the cost of debt right now, right? The interest rates are pretty prohibitive. I know they're coming down a little bit in the UK. But you'd be
with
looking
Qatari, but I hear what you're saying, but with Qatari, the Qataris are often funding projects. So, they're not borrowing the money. They are cash rich, asset rich, cash rich. So, they wouldn't be borrowing money. We know that Daniel secured 670.
Sorry, just quickly, they wouldn't be borrowing money. They'd probably be using their own funding to source.
That's what
the money.
I said. Yeah. Exactly.
Right. But they would be charging an interest rate against the club for it as part of their own ROI structure. That's the way it would generally work. It's the same with Newcastle United. The PIF fund are not going to pay 1.2 billion for a stadium. They're going to charge interest on any loans that get put against that stadium rebuild.
No, but I mean, they would have to if they're going to do a 5-year buyout or a 3-year buyout, the price would have to be established there and then. It's not something, we'll invest 500 million and then we'll drive the value of the club up, and then when we come to buy the rest of it, the price has gone up. No, they will negotiate that price. So it will all be built in, Sean. My point here is, what I was trying to say before, is whether or not that the money that is given initially, whether that's given to pay off debt, which is not part of the 675 million with Bank of America at 2.75%, or it's the money that's outside of that, which is on a higher interest rate. But fans, myself included, would like to know. We're fine if it's going to build a hotel and pay off debt, as long as a large proportion of that money is going to invest in better players on higher wages. Because we know that if you pay more wages, you pay better wages, you get better players, or you'll secure the player over another club. I haven't got the exact numbers now, but I think when you look at how many players are earning over £100,000, for example, even West Ham have got something like 7 or 8 who are earning over 100 grand. We are, I think, something like 5. So my point here is, if that elevates us, and we've got someone who's dealing with football only, and Daniel is only dealing with finance, I think most people would be happy, because we'd have a time frame of him coming out. He's not going to be involved in actual football decisions, only deciding on financial decisions, that are around bringing money into the club, which he's been very successful at. We can't knock him for that. We know he's been successful at that. It's on field where he's failed, over the last 24 years, 16 managers and 1 trophy, which is what it's all about.
Yeah, look, I don't disagree with anything you're saying. I think that when it comes to would the money be used for the stadium? I agree with you that they don't have the money, or they don't want to take the money out of the football club at a time when there's the pressure on to reinvest in the team. At the moment, there's only one pot of money within the football club. It's a deep pot, it's a big pot, and the stadium's doing wonderful things. But if they want to kick on with the hotel, if they want to kick on with that third phase of apartment buildings and things that they're doing up and down the high road, then the money has to come from somewhere. And even if the money from an investment goes towards that, even if that's the case, then essentially what's good for the goose, I say this phrase all the time, can still be good for the gander, in as much as then there's no dilution of the money that the stadium generates or the club generates that would go towards those different projects that would otherwise be the case. So I don't really mind what happens with regards what the money's used for, as long as the money that is currently in the club is not getting sidetracked for different projects that could otherwise be in the footballing kitty. Because like I've made some predictions, Johnny, I personally believe that this summer you will see a record transfer at Tottenham, and I think you'll see a new highest wage earner. That might even happen in the coming days. Apparently Romero is apparently being offered a new contract to become the club's highest earner in order to keep his interest here, rather than turning his head towards other ventures, maybe like towards Real Madrid. One question I do have for you, Johnny, just on the Qatar story. Listen, as a half Irish, half English Christian lad, I don't have any dog in the fight with regards politics, and I don't even understand the complexities of what's happening in the Middle East. It's a very, very tricky subject to negotiate, and I don't really want to get stuck into it, but it is worth asking the question, simply because Qatar specifically are the nation and are the royal household, if you like, that have allegedly, correct me if I'm wrong, I know you're more informed on this topic than I am, that they have housed, for example, the leaders of Hamas. And given Tottenham, Hamas, so given Tottenham's sort of Jewish heritage, do you think that there's any kind of, and I know it's a tricky subject, so I'll let you steer clear of it if you don't want to talk about it, but I just put it out there. Do you think that there is complexities with regards just the fact that if it's from Qatar? Like, do you think that there's going to be some pushback, even from people that are maybe Levy outers that want Levy gone, but maybe the Qatar money is probably a step too far with their own loyalties because of their relationship with maybe, Israel, etc.? I don't know if that's a fair question or it's a dangerous question to ask, and you can answer it however you choose.
I think Israelis now have got a much closer tie with Saudi Arabia, and Dubai and some of the other Arab states, UAE. So there seems to be, because the Abraham Accord, there seems to be some desire to do business peacefully and work together. Qatar and Saudi Arabia have had conflict. They don't see eye to eye. So I suppose if we were looking at ideally, you've said to me, 20 years ago, Saudi Arabia, coming and buying up Spurs, I would have thought it very unlikely. But now I would think that would be maybe more palatable. But listen, look, at the end of the day, the vast majority of supporters aren't Jewish, aren't political, and it shouldn't really enter politics. Shouldn't really enter
I agree.
the game. So I would steer clear of it. I mean, listen, personally, I want someone who's going to be good for our club, the club we all love, and that's all we want to see. We want to see our club progress. And unfortunately, the dream that we were sold all those years ago, when I was walking around, going to say goodbye on that, emotional day against Man United, the farewell at the Lane. And then we were left with the dream of what was going to be in this new stadium. And we watched it go up. It was fantastic sight to see. That when we went in, it was amazing. But slowly, that feeling's ebbed away now, and what we're left with is underwhelming feeling now that we've been.
It's been a tough 5 years, Johnny, right, at the new stadium. But I would point to those noisy neighbours down the road at Arsenal. It took them 8 years to lift their first trophy.
No, I understand that. That's not. I don't. That's not really. I think what the thing is, like, I don't expect to win everything, right? Or what I do expect is to be really competitive, and I think there's definitely a correlation between percentage of spend on wages to competitiveness. And I think you said so yourself, very few clubs have ever won. It's a select band of people who have been winning trophies for all this time. And those are the clubs
spend more. They do spend more.
Right? And those are the clubs that are spending more on wages, and that's what fans want. If we were spending money on the wages, the argument would be weakened, right? But listen, we all know about his judgment as football. He's not a football guy. He's a business guy, very successful, fantastic, Cambridge graduate, fantastic. But as a football person, it's D-, right? You were not graduating on the football front.
Pardon? That's what really worries me. In the article there, it says, they're going to keep him on to lean into his expertise.
Well, that's my point.
Are we talking expertise in football, or are we talking expertise in property? Because I would imagine that Qatar have got their experts in property anyway, right? It's a much broader topic. It's a much more, participated in industry, especially by people out in that particular part of the world, than football is. And so what I worry about is that the Qatari consortium, if it is legit, is coming in and saying, we'll keep you on because that's your demands, your requests, your requirements. You want that juicy salary, et al., going forward. And we'll dress this up as, we'd like to keep you on as a as an expert. And that means that he'll still have final say. He'll still have his hands on the steering wheel. And the argument to get rid of Daniel Levy is to get rid of his
not for me.
Football, right?
Look, for me, I've got no interest on him staying on to run football on pitch matters. He's appointed Scott Munn, who appointed Ange, who appointed Lange, right? The three of them, right? I just don't understand. He's appointed a guy who's not a football guy. Who then appoints a guy who's, no disrespect to Ange, but hasn't managed at this level. Okay, Scotland, Japan is not this level, and we've appointed Lange, who was demoted at Aston Villa. Aspirational, no. It sort of matches our ambition with our wage spend, with the targets that we.
Oh, I might have just lost Johnny for a second. I don't know if he's going to jump back in. This is that Middle Eastern Wi-Fi. I don't know where he's gone. I think where he was going with that was, look, Johnny's a massive advocate of Paratici. He wanted Gabonini to be involved with when the Paratici's ban took place. And look, I'm an advocate to bringing back Paratici as well. So I'd like to see a few changes that happen. With regards to Daniel Levy, I'm always open and open-minded. I'd like to see more detail. I always say, if you bring me something new, I'll chew it over. I'm happy to see this story emerge. It's nice to see that there's some movement, and I trust the Guardian to not be making stuff up, although there's very little kind of concrete new information in there. We shall see. I think Johnny is has sort of dropped out there. So on that basis, guys, we'll probably leave it there. We've been going 22 minutes away. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. First and foremost, do you give it any gravitas? Do you give it any kind of, is there any truth in there? Is it just a little bit of lazy kind of repetitive journalism? Are you okay with the notion of Daniel Levy staying on? I feel like that's a deal breaker. If you do want Levy to go, you might have to suffer him for a few years longer as a part of a phased takeover. Is this somewhere like a compromise that Levy outers and those that aren't Levy out can meet in the middle? As long as there is some more detail around what these guys are looking for, around whose expertise and in what department are they looking to lean into, I can get on board it. But there's always going to be complications. And the political elephant in the room is also something that, like I say, I don't have a dog in the fight, nor do I have a deep understanding of it. So I'll leave that up to anyone else in the comments to let me know. But if you are going to talk about that stuff, please keep it respectful, because it's the football channel after all. Guys, we'll leave it there. Let us know your thoughts. Not QSI, not Sheikh Jassim, probably Stavely and other people out there. What about the debt? What about the funding? What about the Daniel Levy maintaining his chairmanship of the football club for a few years longer yet? Interesting stuff, guys. We'll leave it there. Like, subscribe, and comment to Football Inc. And get over to Spurs Talk Show as well, where you can find myself and Johnny most days. Definitely me every day, but Johnny most of the time. Love you all, guys. Take it easy. Ciao, ciao. Bye-bye.